Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this video I've got the ultimate guide to buying an MX5 for you. Literally everything which you need to know about looking to buy an MX5 and the top modifications to do when you actually own one. So with that said, do grab yourself a cup of coffee because I literally cover everything with you in this episode. For the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, we are going to be discussing rot or rust with an MX5, so you don't end up buying a lemon. And there's Woodstock, that's not a lemon, that's a good car. There's another good car, but that one there, totally a lemon. Rotten beyond belief, and I would hate for you to go on and buy a rotten MX5. So in this video, literally covering everything from rust to engines to models to gearboxes to modifications. We talk about limited slip differentials, or we touch on that as well. Basically everything which you would want to know if you're serious about buying an MX5. So with that said, grab that cuppa and enjoy. From myself, Matt, let's go. Howdy, I'm Matt, and I'm guessing you're looking to buy an MX5 and are not interested in buying a lemon. So if that's you, hang around in this video because I will be going through everything which I've been and learned about MX5s over the last couple of months. I do actually have the iPad down here with me. I've got loads and loads to cover and to help you when you're looking for a new MX5 or second-hand MX5 is all the things which you should be looking out for. Now, the key point here is that I would hate for you to buy a lemon, and I am moving this way on purpose because both of those are lemons and they are beyond economical repair. So give you a heads up, I have owned over 30 MX5s, and right now I think I own about 14, maybe a couple of more, and I am panning here. We do have quite a good selection. That's a California, that's an SVT Sport, that's a Mark II which has actually got electric windows, and that's just a rot box. And you'll find out about rot and MX5s very, very shortly. Now this video is purely focused upon the Mark II and Mark 2.5 models that came out between 98 and 2005. However, almost everything covered would also apply to a Mark I and also a Mark III as well. This is not a short video, and together we will cover everything from rot to engines to models to modifications. Also what you should look out for when you're going to look at a second-hand MX5. So with that in mind, grab yourself a cuppa, and I'm here to help. I've put timestamps for you down in the video description below this video on YouTube to help you, but for goodness sake, do not skip over this section on rot, because that is the #1 thing which you need to be looking out for when it comes to an MX5. So as you can see, we've got quite a selection here. That one there's a rot box, that one there's a rot box, that's my own one. And that's not really a rot box, although we will sort of have a look at a little bit of rot, which it does have. So with that said, if you're not interested in buying a lemon, let's get straight into it. And topic #1 is rot. Okay, rot. It's the only thing which I care about, and it's also the only thing which you should care about when it comes to an MX5. So let's stick the pad down there for a moment, and we'll have a look up underneath the bonnet. Now, when it comes to an MX5 is, and I generally kid you not, rot is your #1 and only real concern, okay? If you've got a car with rot and you've got a car with no service history and no rot, go for the car with no service history and no rot. It's as simple as that, and the reason being, it is so expensive to get these things fixed. So let's go, so we've lifted up the engine bay. It's very simple for you to do. Now it's kind of handy because I've got a little bit of extra space in here, and I will zoom into the places where you need to look. So first things first, chassis rail rot. This is the first thing which you should look at when you go to see an MX5. Basically there are two tubes, one on this side and one on that side, and those are called the chassis rails, and you can see them just down here. Okay, now if you were looking at that, can I have the pointer? Thank you. Basically, you ignore that bit of rusty there because that's just the top of the suspension. You don't really worry about that. However, this is what you worry about. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and put the camera down underneath there so you can have a look to see how bad the chassis rail rot can get in an MX5. So kind of handy that we've got the camera here, and right up underneath it. And this one's not actually that bad. I've seen, well, to be honest, it's written off the car, but I've got MX5s here which you can literally put your hands through these chassis rails. So what you do is that come up to the front of the car, and then if I put the pointer down a second, put your hand down here. There's always lots of room here, okay? Put your hand down and underneath, okay? Now it's okay to feel a little bit of bubbling underneath there. However, as we just saw on the camera, that one is really gone. And then also on the opposite side. Now this one's very difficult to get at. You do need quite small hands, so you just get your fingers in between the power steering pump, the reservoir just there, and get your fingers up underneath. You can do that when you've got a full engine bay, and do have a good feel around that side as well. Expect to feel some light bubbling. However, if you're getting big chunks fall off in your hand, or it feels really gone, or you come round to the wheel and then take a look up inside of the wheel arch, which there, okay? Now this one kind of looks alright from the inside. However, I've got cars here, if I can stick my finger in, which you can put your hand all the way through those chassis rails. And the reason why you need to be, and obviously you need to check the opposite side as well. Now the thing about the chassis rails, you're talking £600 to £700 minimum to get those welded up, because you have to take out the top wishbone, the bottom wishbone, take the whole wheel off, all parts inside of it, the anti-roll bar which is tacked on. It's not a 2-minute job, and look to be paying a good £600 to £700 for a professional job. And unfortunately, I'm going to go off the script here a little bit. I actually sold a Montana to a lovely lady, and however she knew the chassis rails. She knew her MX5s, and we had it up on the ramp, and the rot had gone all the way as far back as the suspension struts, and we just couldn't, there was no good metal left to save. So I can tell you point blank now, that was an awkward conversation with that lady, because basically the car was just good for the scrapper basically, and it was then later on just broken up into parts and sold off. So yeah, chassis rails, very serious. Now the second area which they go, and I'm going to skip over the silver one, is that we're going to go around and we're going to take a look at the rear seals. Now you always find these turning up in the MOT history, and let's understand why we get this issue. And by the way, it's not the rot which is there, it's underneath. Is that the reason why MX5s fail so frequently for this is that the MOT tester knows that just there, if I point to it, just there, is the seatbelt restraint, and within 30 centimetres or whatever it is the rear seals, which are just down here underneath the car, which you cannot see very well, which there we can see now, is, oh actually this one's got a welding patch on there. That's nice to see. Someone has loved this car. However, he'll come in here and he'll start poking and prodding, and we can see chunks of rust falling off, yeah, they'll fail that if it's non-structural, because we do have the seatbelt harness restraint underneath there. Now also, while we're here, we'll quickly flick around and we'll see some proper rot here in the rear arches. This is serious. Again, this car is only good for braking, and you can see what happens if you don't manage the rot with your MX5. It just turns to dust. Okay, yeah, that is my footprint on it as well, and there's me in the reflection. Howdy. Right, let's turn around and we will take a look at my own MX5, and you will see at some point in its time, actually one of the reasons why I bought it, is that the lower seal has been re-welded. Basically they cut out a hole in here, went inside, fixed, treated the rust, and then put a new plate on top, probably fashioned by hand, and then put a covering on top. So that's my own MX5. They did a really nice job on it. I would guess in maybe 2 years, a year's time, more like 2 years to be honest, I might have to get this redone, just because I've got a very good mechanic who I chuck loads of work his way, so it won't be very expensive for me to do that. That said, you would be looking to be paying 400 quid, maybe more, for both sides if they've gone. To be brutally honest, there are YouTube channels out there which talk about the MX5 and they go mad. They go absolutely mad. They will cut out half the bloody wing and stuff, completely unnecessarily, in my humble opinion. If it's just the rear sill which has gone down here, for the car to pass the MOT, you just get your mechanic or your welder to cut a hole in here, fix the rust which they find inside, treat it, and then manufacture a plate to go on top and then get it welded up, and then it will pass its MOT. Okay, so I'm sure I'll upset a few of the purists which would have bought new panels and just spent loads of money, but in reality, not very well needed. Right, where's the pad? And we'll move on to the next one in the to-do list. Moving on, front wings, don't be put off by a little bit of rust, okay? A little bit of rust around the front edges of a wing, that's perfectly fine, it's not going to fall off. However, where it might fall off, and I kid you not, I've had some right lemons here, is that, and there's me laughing because I am thinking about one specifically, is up here. So we're right at the front wheel, we come up and we have a look underneath there. A little bit of surface rust underneath there is to be expected, but if this is all bubbled out, then it would put the front part of the sill into question. I've had cars here, I think I'll cut into a screenshot where I've gone to drag a photo which I've done, where I've gone to jack up the front of the car and then the jack has gone up into the car. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, so that's why I'm giggling to myself, because I have had that before. The other place where they can frequently go is two other places in the boot, and if it goes in one of these places, it's very, very awkward to get done. You may have already been spotted the daylight, which is in this boot. I did tell you this car is getting broken. So yeah, that's not uncommon to find daylight in the boot, especially underneath the battery bay. Also, on a very serious point, I will mention this later, but for right now, if you get on aftermarket battery which has been fitted to your battery bay, look out for shorts in here. There is a severe fire risk, which I've seen several times in MX5s which have turned up here. We will talk about that later. Also, do check up underneath the rear wheel if there was one in here for this lower edge. I've had cars here before where the rear sill or the bonnet's not been sitting down properly. Water gets in, it collects down here in the back, and you can literally see your toes underneath there. If you've got that and it's the only rust which you've got, go and get it repaired. However, if you've got rust here in this back corner, it's very difficult to weld to. It's going to be a time-intensive task, aka it's going to get expensive. Right, what else do we have on our rust list? Because there's quite a lot of rock kicking around. So far we've spoken about the chassis rails, we've spoken about the rear seals, we've spoken about the rear arches. Yeah, just a note on the rear arches is that if it's a simple fix and it's hidden, you can probably get away with that. However, just be aware, you cannot take this panel off. As such, you are talking 200 quid minimum for any welding work which needs to be done there. That's excluding if you get a new panel to go in, and then for that whole section to be sprayed. It's not a cheap task to get done. Okay, it's not like a wing or a door which could potentially get taken off. Rear quarters, they are expensive. So if you're buying a car which has got rear arch rust, yeah, go careful is what I'm trying to say. We've spoken about rotten exhausts. Now approach the car from the left hand side. I won't do it on mine because we won't get our hands underneath it because it's been lowered. So come round to the left hand side of the car, and what you're looking for, I've had this several times now, and you're going to want to get down, and the thing is look, if you're serious about owning an MX5, you're going to have to get on your hands and knees. So let's get down here on the ground. And this one's not that particularly low either, it's particularly high either. There's a middle box here in the middle of the car. What you're trying to do is put your hand underneath it and shake it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've had exhausts which have just fallen apart, okay? They sound absolutely fine, but that middle box on where the pipe comes to the back rots out for a pastime, and that will just come off in your hand. So just make sure if you're going to sit with a seller, get them to do it. Don't panic too much. New exhaust sections, what are they, 80 quid, something like that on eBay, really inexpensive in the scheme of things, but just something to be aware of. Also while you're there, and if you've got the car jacked up as well, get in, there's a prop shaft which goes from the front, from the back of the gearbox to the differential at the back. Just give that a little wobble as well. It will move a little bit, but you're looking for excessive play, okay? So if you can move it around in a big circle, there's something not quite right there. So I've got to kind of gracefully get myself back up here, and this will be you as well. Don't be afraid to get the car mat out of the passenger side or the driver's side of the car, and get down on your hands and knees, because if you're serious about not buying a lemon, then you are going to have to get on your knees, and that is a complete lemon. Right, also on the ROT side, engine bay. Good job I made some notes about this, isn't it? Telltale sign. Okay, first impressions, you open up the engine bay and it might look all nice and dandy. You might have an old oil leak down here at the side, nothing really to worry about at all. However, if you start seeing surface rust, okay, especially over this arch and over that side as well, you need to start looking seriously at the integrity of the arches. I've had cars here again, as one of the things I've over 30 of them, which you can literally just poke with your finger and your finger goes through the wheel arch. That's really down to poor preventative maintenance from the previous owner. You'll see it down here as well. Really good telltale sign, and of course there's no structural integrity in there, and again, because it's around the suspension strut, it will fail an MOT. Now, no apologies for the wind noise which you may be experiencing, or traffic noise. I'm outside recording this in my garden, so it's just the way it is. Now, also on the topic of rust, this one's really well hidden. Okay, nobody ever tells you to check this one, but it's vitally important, and I can't do it on that box. And see, I'm being very polite here. Okay, this is a California, by the way, absolute beauty. It's called Woodstock, of all things. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. Don't you just love those seat covers? Amazing, amazing. Right, again, serious point. Get into the passenger footwell. Okay, you can pull this piece of plastic trim up, it just pops off in your hand. Grab that carpet at the back and pull it forwards. If the seller won't allow you to do that, get your hand in here and feel for moisture. Okay, the reason why you need to be worried about this is that I've had so many MX5s here where the bottom rails and all this bit here is all rotten out, because what happens, people don't properly sort out the connection for their roof using these clips just here. Okay, they won't do the adjuster in here. Let me just point this out for you. There's the adjuster. You can push that backwards and you can adjust that to make a tighter fit. So when you clamp your roof down like so, it makes a tighter fit. What happens then, water gets in, and something really valuable which you cannot see right now because it's behind that carpet is your ECU. The brain of the car is in a metal box behind there, and of course if that's basically sitting in a swimming pool, not good. You'll just get loads and loads of errors, random stuff happening. Yeah, not good. So do check the passenger footwell for just basically moisture. It will be quite obvious. I've had some here and they've been like swimming pools. So yeah, those seat covers are quite bright. What else do we have on the ROT list? Let's have a quick look. Oh, surface rust underneath the car. Don't even concern yourself about the surface rust underneath the car. If you ever get one of these MX5s up on the ramp, they're all rotten underneath. They're all really rusty. Don't panic about it at all, okay? You only have to be really concerned about it if it's severe rust where part of it has actually started to deteriorate. But don't be surprised if you take one of these up, put it on the ramp, and you'll see lots of rust underneath. That's perfectly normal. That's just an MX5, to be brutally honest. One thing which you can do, going off my little script here, that's my beautiful SVT Sport. Underneath that car, I had it up on a ramp for several hours. I wire brushed the entire underside. I treated every single piece of rust, even all the arms and stuff, and then undersealed that car 3 times. Okay, so I did it once, and you can buy the underseal from Screwfix for £5 a can. Sprayed it over, and then let that dry. Did it a second time, and of course I was able to work all the way around the car, and I did that 3 times. And there's 3 layers of underseal underneath that car. That's how serious I take rot with my own MX5, okay? Because I want it to last. I absolutely adore it. Moving on. Right, next topic is models. Now, there are many different models of an MX5. We've got 4 different versions here. Now, the 2 which stand out, well, first let's identify the difference between a Mark II and a 2.5. What's the difference between the colours? Have you spotted it yet? Yeah, that's right. Headlights, okay? So you can spot a Mark II by the headlamp. You'll see that the light here is all one unit, okay? Whereas on a 2.5, you will see there's 3 different sections. So you've got your main beam, and like a big lens piece just here on the left. You've got your normal normal side lights, and of course your indicators there in the middle. That is the biggest telltale sign between a Mark II and a 2.5. Now, what's the differences besides that with a 2 and a 2.5? Well, same stuff. Central locking is the big one, and electric windows. That is the big difference. Oh, and also ABS. It's very rare for you to find anti-lock brake systems on a Mark II unless you're dealing with the 1.S or the person paid a lot of extra money to have the ABS unit fitted on their MX5. So yeah, it's very rare to find a Mark II with ABS in there. In fact, I'll show you where you can find that. I'm going to pop the bonnet up on this one, and this one's a California. We're going to talk about different models of MX5s. Now, one thing which you've got to say about Mazda is that they did a very, very good job, and by the way, the bonnet catches down here on the right hand side of the car. One thing which they did do a very good job is with their different models and their branding. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, there's one bonnet up. Okay, you look here on the right hand side, you've got a screen washer bottle, and there's no pipes over in that right hand corner. Hold that at the back of your mind. Let's go and pop my own bonnet. Same as wrong. I can pop my own MX5's bonnet. Got it. There we go. And you will notice this ABS unit here. That's silver block in the back right hand corner. There's lots of pipes going into it. That's your ABS unit. And that is the difference, typical difference between a Mark II and a 2.5. And also, if we now know what we know, aha, that has to be a Mark II because of the headlamps. Big giveaway. And then we have a look at this one. Oh, that's got to be a Mark 2.5. Okay. Now, there are lots and lots of different models of MX5s. Now, we're not going to go into all of them. Okay. Instead, I'm going to break them into 3 different types. You either have a standard MX5, which is that silver box there. Again, keeping it family friendly. You also have something special, like the California. The California, there was only 250 of these made, I think, off the top of my head, and they only came in bright yellow. They came with those wheels, absolute gorgeous little ones. There's also models like the Montana. They were typically burgundy with a cream leather interior, really, really nice. The Nevada had the same as well. There's also the Arctic, and I'll put screenshots up on your page as well. There's the Europhonic, there's SVT Sports, which we'll get to in a moment. There's a whole different collection. Which ones have I missed out? There's a couple in there as well. Icon as well, Nevada, and there's a couple of others as well. I'll tell you what, to help you, I'll put a link in the video description to a website which details each different type of model which have come out for the Mark IIs and the 2.5s. And also the last type of MX5, so we had standard, which is that box over there. You have special, like the California, and you also have the SVT Sport. Now, what's special about the SVT Sport is, generally speaking, they came later, so they came much later on, 2003, 2004, 2005. They have the 1.8 litre, 146 brake horsepower engine. They come with a 6-speed gearbox. The easiest way to spot if you've got a Sport or not is that you've got fog lamps in the front. If you've got seeing fog lamps in the front, it's very rare to find someone's been and modded their MX5 to have those fog lamps in the front. And also, generally speaking, they will come with a 6-speed gearbox. We will talk about gearboxes later, and also leather interior as well. This is not the standard leather interior which came in mine. It was black before, and I've been to swap mine out. So yeah. Oh, heated seats as well you get in the SVT Sport, which you only get in a certain couple of other models as well. Right, moving on. Now, generally, this is going to be a bit of a shock horror because we're going to be talking about engines next. And the thing is, this is a bit of a shock horror. Given the choice over a car which is rusty and lots of service history, so there's a car which is rusty. We saw how bad that is, just part of it's missing. And we saw how bad this box here is as well, okay? I would personally choose an MX5 which has absolutely no service history, okay, over rust. And the reason for that is very, very simple, okay? Rot is very expensive to fix in MX5s. 600-700 quid for the chassis rails. Rear seals, 500 quid. Quarters, 200 quid minimum per side. okay, front wings, and it's so serious, okay. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you're looking at an MX5, it has no service history, but it's not rotten. Get it, buy it. Okay, that is your number one concern when it comes to an MX5. Okay, is rot. Okay, so getting now onto my topic of engines. There's basically two different types of engines. Can you put my engine bay up as well? And we'll do a quick look over. Okay, so I know just by looking at this car, it's a 1.6. How do I know it's a 1.6? A, I've looked at the registration, but B, 99% of all the 1.6s are not VVTs, and I'm tapping this bit here. Okay, so this is a non-VVT engine. If it was a VVT engine, so I'm going to take a look at mine. There we go. You'll notice that there's a lump just there. Now VVT stands for variable valve timing. I'm not really into my car and engine things, so basically you're able to get a little bit more horsepower out of it because they're able to make the timing variable. That's as much as I know. Alright, so that's the biggest giveaway. If you see an engine like that with a lump on the front left, okay, that is actually a good sign. Okay, because we're now going to move on to the topic of timing belts, or your cam belts, which is hidden underneath there, is that if the cam belt or timing belt snaps on a VVT engine, it's non-interference. It's not the end of the world, other than it being an inconvenience, and you might have other very minor damage. However, with the non-VVT, is that if that timing belt goes, very serious. It is an interference fit, so it does mean the pistons could damage the other parts of the car. Okay, now while we're on the topic of timing belts, if you're dealing with a non-VVT, you really want to be seeing if the car's done 80k or more, 80,000 miles or more, so we'll say 100,000 kilometers, is that, and that's a really bad translation, you have to look it up. Okay, basically if your car's done a decent amount of mileage, you want to be seeing a receipt for a cam belt. Okay, cam belt minimum, ideally with the pulley, and ideally with a water pump at the same time. Okay, now don't stress if you don't see that. And the reason why I'm saying don't stress is because you can readily buy the cam belt, the pulley, the other bits and bobs, and a water pump for about £80 from eBay. And because if you look at the front of this engine, imagine you're a mechanic, you can get your hands in here. It's so easy to work on, especially for a timing belt. So don't listen to your mechanic who goes, oh, he says that's a hard job. No, it's not. It's really easy on an MX5 because everything is at the front. They'll lift it up a little bit and just work happily away on the front. Very, very easy to work on an MX5. The only issue is you might get a sore back because you're leaning over all the time with it. So yeah, it has a book time of 2.5 hours. Don't expect that to don't be surprised if that hits 3 hours and a little bit more, because it's a timing belt change and that has serious implications if it goes wrong. So 3 hours book time, inexpensive parts, really good access. It's not like a front wheel drive car where the engine's round that way normally and the timing belts are all down the side. Absolute nightmare to do a timing belt one of those. I watched my mechanic do one on a Qashqai a short while ago. You should have heard the swear words. Anyway, MX5s, really straightforward. Get to my point. Non-VVT, so it doesn't have this lump on the front. You want to be seeing a receipt for a timing belt. If you don't get that, or you don't, the previous owner doesn't know it, don't stress too much. It's not expensive, and of course, while they're doing the timing belt on the car, they can also be servicing it. So changing the oil filter, air filter, and wiper blades, diff oil and gearbox oil, which we'll get to on that topic in just a moment. So let's get back to our list here a moment. Right, okay. Engines, MX5s, they are good to 150,000 miles. That's also the 1.6 and the 1.8 as well. Okay, the reason why I'm saying they're good to 150,000 miles, personally I would never buy an MX5 with more than 130,000. After about 150, what you can find is the oil gets past the rings and you can get a smoky exhaust. The easiest thing to do is get someone in the driver's seat to rev the engine, then you put your hand up over the exhaust here at the back left, and if you've got any oil splatters on your hand, that's an indication that you've got oil going past the rings. Could be other issues, but that's generally what it is. And also ask the owner about when the last time they checked their oil and things like that. Look for a low oil, your dipsticks just here at the back. Look for any low oil in the car. Little note about head gaskets, never had one, well, one here which was basically written off as a boat anchor, and I never did check it, but with oil, do just check up underneath the top of here, make sure the engine's been running, so do this while it's warm, okay, obviously not when the engine is running. Look up underneath and look for any creaming, okay. Now don't be surprised if there's something a little bit milky right in the top of that cap. That's quite normal, just a little bit of condensation's got in there. If the head gasket is gone, and the head gasket is the gasket, it's a very thin piece of material which separates the oil from the water in the car, and it's very difficult. It's not, it's very simple to change. Once you get to it, you have to go so many layers deep into the engine. That's why it gets expensive and also scary. The serious point is that after the engine's been running, do check the dipstick, okay, because if water has been and got in, is that it will make it down onto the dipstick, and you will see some creamy liquid down there, and that you basically walk away. That's the basic summary. That one, absolutely lovely. We'll pop that back down. The circle at the things at the back, the little thumb puller, always breaks. Mine's broken, not really bothered about it. Right, engines. Oh, 3 errors. MX5 engines are, I should have said this at the beginning, they are super reliable. You'll only ever get 3 issues with your MX5 engine, okay? They are absolutely brilliant. The first one is a P12 code, very rare to get this one, but I've had it twice, and that's a retarded crank angle sensor, which we can't see in that bay, but we're going to have a look in this one, which is the sensor which is right down here, and is very simple to, well, it's cheap and it's easy to change. The wire's just down the back, okay, that's the plug for it, and it goes down the back of the time, down the auxiliary belts, and pops out down the bottom. That's very rare to happen, but I've had that twice. The other one are the O2 sensors, so the lambda sensors that basically, oh, we can see one there actually. There's one sensor just there. If it will focus, come on, there we go. And you'll see that sensor's going into the manifold or the exhaust, okay, and that checks for the emissions before the catalytic converter and after. Now, you'll typically get a P0031, which is pre-cat, and P0037, which is post-cat. Don't panic, they're about 15 quid on eBay, and I'm going to say relatively, in inverted commas, easy to change. But because this is a 1.6, it's down there on the right hand side, very simple to get to. Just take the washer bottle out normally and you've got great access to it, and the same for the wiring. However, the one which is in the post-cat sensor, okay, you have to take out the passenger seat. I kid you not, the 4 bolts to take out the passenger seat, take the bolt out, and then the plug's hiding down the back of the carpet, and then you can get it out. It's a little bit of a rigmarole, but again, you're not talking hours and hours to get it changed, and then 15 quid sensor. So yeah, MX5 engines, super reliable. Just stay away from them being high mileage, okay, because you will run into issues. Right, moving on. What's next on there? We've spoken about that bit as well. Ooh, while you're getting, let's talk about servicing, okay? When it comes to your MX5, like I said, don't worry about too much if you've got no service history. It's because the engines are rock solid. I genuinely mean that, really bulletproof, okay? When it comes to the actual servicing of your MX5, and H, can you put the bonnet on top of Woodstock so we can have a look inside the California engine bay as well? Oil filter and oil, of course, okay, air filter. We'll get to modifications in a little bit later, okay, but the air filter box is very simple to get at. MX5 servicing is really cheap and very easy to do. Couple of things to look out for, not to overlook. The wiper blades themselves, they cost 6 quid over on eBay, super inexpensive, and you'll see this car, which is actually up for sale, is that you'll see I've fitted Aero wiper blades to them as well. They only cost 6 quid. Airbox, super easy to get at. You right there with that? Yeah. Can you put that hook in there? Thank you. Super easy to get at, and you'll notice what type of engine is this. What we're missing is a 1.6 non-VVT engine. 2 things for you to look out for, and don't overlook when it comes to the servicing of your MX5, is change your brake fluid. Just look at that colour on that brake fluid. It looks like urine, okay? If it looks like chocolate, a toffee, get it changed, okay? But your mechanic will be it's a very simple test just to confirm that, and they'll be able to do it in the garage for free for you. Talking about toffee, look at that clutch fluid back there. Okay, quite dark, isn't it? Okay, that clutch fluid potentially needs to be changed. And actually, my car's going in for a service very shortly, and we will be doing. And again, you'll see that I've already been and done my brake fluid, but we will be doing the clutch fluid, and I've also need to change the clutch in this engine, and we will get to clutches and a little note about those a little bit later. Okay, so clutch fluid. Don't overlook brake fluid and clutch fluid and window wipers as part of your service history, okay, or part of your servicing, because remember, changing an air filter, oil filter, and the oil and the spark plugs is all very, very easy to do. Your spark plugs are just here on the top of the engine. That's a 1.8, that's a 1.6. Look how easy it is to get to your spark plugs. Super, super easy. So look out for those. Right, next up on our list, one thing which I am just adding back in when it comes to the servicing of your MX5 is do not forget to change the differential oil and your gearbox oil. It costs about £30 for the right oil. Look up for your specific model, and it's very, very simple to do, and something which everybody forgets to do. The differential's on the back. Your mechanic will be able to do it for you. He literally, for the rear diff, he undoes 2 bolts, he lets it drain out, it takes 5 minutes, he's not even there, he's drinking a cup of coffee, puts the bottom bolt back in, and then fills it in the top. It is a little bit of a mucky job for the rear diff. When it comes to the gearbox, exactly the same. He just undoes a nut, it pours itself out, puts the nut back in, and then tops up on the top. Okay, 30 quid. Less than 20 minutes to do, and it's something which everybody overlooks on their MX5, and it will help get rid of whining noises if you've got a whining diff at the back, and also just helps your gearbox survive. You know, if it's like my personal car's done say 88,000 miles, it was time for it to be done. I've been and done it on mine. It was very, very simple to do, and again, it's not something which you can really do at home on ramps and stuff, or you can, but it's not very easy. Take it to a garage, very inexpensive to do, and very simple to do as well, and it will help your MX5 last. Right, miles per gallon, okay, that's a 1.8 VVT, that's the sport one. You will be looking at about 250 miles per full tank, okay, so it costs me about £50 to fill the tank up to the brim, and I get about 250 miles for that full tank. With a 1.6 is that you would be expecting about 330 miles for a full tank. Same size tank between them, but you are going to get the extra mileage. To be honest, driving them, the difference between a 1.6 and a 1.8 is negligible. Okay, absolutely negligible in power on a day-to-day, just driving it around, enjoying it. Because let's face it, I'm 40, not 14, so this car I stick and get up into 6, which we'll talk about gearboxes in a bit, and then I just cruise. I'm not. If I wanted something fast, I actually own a BMW X5. That is fast. This is an MX5. It's not fast. Oh, and we will touch the topic of turboing a little bit later in the modifications section. Right. Next topic was brakes, wasn't it? Okay. Right. Generally speaking, when it comes to brakes in an MX5s, they are very, very good. You're looking at about 25 quid for a set of 4 pads for the front, and about 25 quid for the pads at the back. Now, it's very common for you to find that an MX5, or the MX5 which you're looking at, has been stood up for a long period of time, and that's exactly what I had with mine. And you'll notice that we've got some brand new discs here in the back. Now, give you a heads up, those discs, I know some people don't like Holfords, but those rear discs cost me £18 for the pair, £9 each. Unbelievable value. So do shop around for your discs. There's shops like Holfords, which is a retailer here in the UK, and auto retailer, which do get a bit of a slating from time to time. They can be absolute chestnuts and be a complete bargain for money. And I literally ordered in the morning, went there later in the afternoon, picked them up for 18 quid, absolute joke. Anyway, when it comes to brakes, like I was saying, it's quite common to find these MX5s have been stood up for a long period of time. As such, the piston, which is inside your calipers, and again, if the brake fluid has not been serviced recently or regularly enough, as moisture gets in there, and the piston itself ends up getting pitted, and your rear brakes then stay on, which causes dragging, or you basically, when you go for the test drive, if you can hear lots of scraping coming from the back of the car, then yeah, chances are the pistons are gone. and need to be changed. Now, instead of buying a whole caliper, you can buy the piston which is inside of there for about £22 per side off eBay. It's just straight replacement units. And again, these are the big brakes, by the way, so that was still an absolute bargain when it came to price on those discs. 22 quid, and your mechanic about an hour, they're going to hour's labour to do it, and that's just them taking it off, taking your piston out, faffing with it, because you'll need a second person to push the brake pedal to get it out. That said, relatively straightforward to do. Getting ourselves back onto the topic. Ooh, that brings us really nicely onto a contentious topic, which is limited slip differentials. Now, these are called LSDs. If you didn't know, basically in the back of your car, so the MX5 is a rear wheel drive car, so you have the engine in the front, so we've got the gearbox about here, there's a prop shaft which goes through, and then down in the back of the car we have a differential, and basically it spreads the power which comes in this way and then spreads it out to both wheels at the back of your car. Now, this is where I'm going to go against the grain to the, well, we'll say the chavs, okay? What the boy racers like to do is to have something called a Torsen differential. Now, those are really, really well sought after now. The last one which I had sold for £375. That's how desirable they are, because you can only get them in the old 1.8s. In my SVT Sport, I have got a Fuji GIF, which in my humble opinion is the best differential, and I know that will upset some of the purists and those guys which go out and do track days and things like that. However, the reality is that if you're just driving around day to day on normal roads in normal conditions, you don't really care. You genuinely do not care. You do not care if it's an open differential, whether it's a Fuji or potentially a Torsen differential, okay? Only you should care about that if you're doing track days, and personal opinion, I go against the trend. I quite like the Fuji GIF. I drive this on the roads. I've never been to a track day, no, absolutely zero interest of putting my MX5 on a track. So, and for day-to-day driving, it is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, there are other types that I know that I'm skipping over, like the VLSD, which came in the Mark 1, and there was another type which I've frankly forgotten. I've probably got it in my notes. To be honest, completely irrelevant. If your car has got a Torsen LSD in it, that's happy days, okay? If it's got a Fuji diff, that's happy days. If it's got an open diff, that's happy days. If you don't care, it's all happy days. Oh, there is one other type which I will mention, which is welded differential, and what that basically means, instead of like the back wheels having a little bit of give in them, when you're going around in bends and stuff, you can have it like they've welded up the bolts in the middle, so both wheels move at both exactly the same time. That's, you need to ask your seller, whoever's selling your car, is the diff welded? 99.99% of the time it won't be welded, so yeah, just look out for that. The reason being is because I've driven cars, I've got a car here with a welded diff, and by goodness me, and that's keeping it really family friendly, is that an absolute nightmare to turn. You just go, it's just gone through tyres basically, not a pretty sight. Right, moving on to gearboxes. Now, this car here is actually an SVT Sport. As we learned earlier, it has a 6-speed gearbox, which well, it says 8 on my gear knob, but very simple mod, by the way. Onto a serious point. So underneath there is a 6-speed gearbox. It's nice if you've got a 6-speed gearbox. That's all I'm going to say on the topic. However, the brutal reality is that the other models, which have got a 5-speed gearbox, when you're doing 70 miles an hour down the dual carriageway or the motor, you're both cars, so that's a 1.8 with a 6-speed, that's a, don't even know what it is, but it'll have a 5-speed box in it, is that you're both doing 3,200, 3,300 revs in it, and you're doing exactly the same speed. Just with the 6, you've just got you've got an extra, between first and 6, they've crammed in an extra gear. That's basically what they've done. Now, those guys out there who end up turboing the MX5s, and I come into this one specifically because most turbo guys go and turbo a 1.6 engine because there's less meat which has been taken out of the rings, out of the, you know what I mean. Anyway, getting to my point. is the guys who turbo them, they use the 5-speed box. That is actually the recommendation, and the reason why it's recommended is because to cram the extra 6th gear into the gearbox, they've just made the gears smaller. That's basically all they've been and done. As such, the 6-speed gearboxes are not as reliable as a 5-speed gearbox. Also, some irony for you, with the 6-speed gearbox is actually worth about 300 quid for that gearbox, whereas a 5-speed gearbox, which is made perhaps in that one over, which is in Woodstock over there, is only worth 50 quid second hand. Work that out. And I don't understand it why. I own a 6-speed gearbox and it's a royal pain in the ass. I just end up driving around in 5th half the time, to be brutally honest. And it would be, and again, I almost kept that one as my own personal car, and she was absolutely brilliant. And with a 5-speed box, I just genuinely prefer a 5-speed box. The 6-speed, there's nothing special in there. But if you find one with a 6-speed in it, happy days. Okay. Right, let's move to the topic about hardtops and roofs. Now, obviously, you're buying an MX5 because it's a convertible. Why would you not be buying an MX5? That's my normal argument. There are two. Anyway, on a serious point, there are 2 types of roofs. This is a mohair. Can you hear that? Is a material. You'll also see all the cat hair because my cats love to sleep on top of my roofs. On here, whereas the other type of roof which you can get is, again, they're just good, is both as good as each other. This is a vinyl roof, so you can listen to that, okay, and very different. They're two very different materials. That's a vinyl roof. Woodstock, you can see this the issue with vinyl roofs is they can crack, okay, so you'll see very light cracking. They're almost irrelevant. Mohairs, you might get a wear mark just here, and maybe here as well. Okay, and again, so I've treated mine. It is what it is. Mohairs generally last for very long periods of time. However, you'll notice on vinyls, they will die. It's very common for them to break, and because this car's been scrapped, it really doesn't matter. They get very brittle, okay? So as such, vinyls are less desirable than mohairs. However, I've driven cars with both types of roofs and I'm not fazed by either of them. I personally prefer mohairs. If you have the choice between a mohair and a vinyl, I would suggest a mohair. That brings us on to hardtops, which is a topic which I really do not get, okay? I'm the kind of person which is 6:30 in the morning, I've got my roof down. If it's not raining, the roof is down. I bought a convertible for it to be a convertible. That's my argument, and that's what I'm sticking with, okay? However, you can buy hardtops. Now, the only point which I'm going to make as far as hardtops go is the only thing which you need to look at if you're buying one is that if you see any cracking around these rear pillars, okay, walk away. The hardtops are made of fiberglass. As such, they can crack if they're abused. If there's any crack in here, you walk away. That's the simple thing when it comes to hardtops, okay? It does change the driving experience. It does get, in the winter, I might appreciate why you'd want a hardtop. That said, not really a big thing for me at all. But yeah, if you're going to buy a hardtop and you have the choices over a hardtop, go for a black hardtop because those are the most desirable and also the most easily ones to sell later on should you go on and decide to sell the car. Right, let's move to a very serious topic, which is about written off cars. I have a very different opinion to what the general public may have. When it comes to written off cars, there are basically 2 types. The one which you really shouldn't care about too much is something called a Category N. Now, that was formerly known as a Category D. Now, this is the UK. If you're in a different country other than the United Kingdom, then that may be slightly different for your country. But here in the UK, we have Category N. Now, this, I'm going to read it word for word. Vehicles graded accordingly haven't sustained structural damage, so the issue may become cosmetic or a problem with the electrics that isn't economical to repair. Don't assume such vehicles are drivable. However, non-structural faults may include brakes, steering, or other safety related parts. Basically, Category N is the insurers deemed it as being too expensive to repair. Maybe I've got a car here right now which had a whack in the back left hand corner. Now, on face value, and it was a custom paint job, aka pink, okay, is that the custom paint job, and you think about this, and then the back bumper, and then the unknown issues with the hub and the wishbone, and it could have been the subframe and things like that, and then it didn't count for the cost of the hire car and everything else. It basically wrote off the car. Now, here's some irony for you. That pink cabriolet, which I've got here, the bottom bolt, which was in the wishbone, that's what was bent. So the wheel was actually facing out by about an inch like that when I first had it, when it looked really bad. Anyway, I went to bang out the bottom bolt and it got stuck, and it turned out it was the bottom bolt, not the hub, not the wishbone, not the subframe, which took all the brunt of the damage. It was only the bottom bolt, and a bit of a scuff on the paintwork, which cost me 250 quid in the body shop, and they did an absolutely amazing job on it. So category N's, do not be scared of a category N car. Just find out what happened and how they repaired it and who repaired it as well. That's categorically important, okay? However, if you come across a category S, okay, S stands for structural, okay, that was also formerly category D, run away, okay? S means structural. So for example, I've seen MX5s which have had, put the roof down, and that's, by the way, that's how I treat the roof. So you don't, good luck breaking the glass, put it that way. Imagine in here, can you imagine there's a tube running through here. I've seen MX5s which have had these sections damaged, and that's classed as structural. Maybe it's had a rear impact, front impacts and things like that. I would personally not touch a category S car. It's had most likely a bloody good whack, and I don't want to be sat in it, okay? I'll let you make your own decision on that one. Category N, normally, thumbs up, fine. Category S, walk away. That's my personal advice for you when it comes to the different written off categories. But that said, there's lots of MX5s out there. Go and do your research. It's very easy for you to, and very cheap for you to go and do a lookup on a registration. You can do it for free. Well, you can get basic information for free. There's a little vehicle app which I'll put a link in the video description for you. It cost me $2.99, and I can do a very quick HPI check on a car. So I can tell you that one there was a category D at one point, and it also had a VIC history on it as well, where it went off and got inspected when they used to do that. They don't do it anymore because it's basically completely pointless. But yeah, that car was written off once before. Right, let's move on to a really nice topic, one of my favourite topics, or probably the topic which you've been looking forward to the most, which are modifications. Now, let's be completely honest here, I'm not a boy racer anymore. When I want to go out and drive, my most important thing when it comes to driving the MX5 is the stereo. That should be your #1 upgrade thing for your MX5. Put a decent head unit in it. So maybe go for a single unit where you've got Bluetooth and CD player or something like that, or USB, and USB hopefully, or maybe go for one of those bigger double DIN units which you can pop in your car. Again, things have progressed with cars now, and you can get this standardized, and they're called ISO sockets. You can buy the sockets on eBay, and basically you plug it into the wiring loom which is in the back of your stereo. You take your old stereo out on your dashboard. Have I got, and hang on, there's me talking about it. Let me just show you in Woodstock actually, because I'm pretty sure there's a stereo in the glove box, and it, like I said, everything's standardized now. So there's your slot for your stereo, okay, and there's your connector. Now, did I not say things are being standardized? Move that wire out of the way. That's how easy wiring up car stereos is now. Everything's been standardized. That's an ISO connector. You can buy that on eBay. I think it was MX5 parts I bought that from, for about 8 quid, something like that. Absolute bargain. It makes wiring up stereos absolutely child's play. There is no messing around with like custom looms and things like that anymore. It is all plug and play. Even if you were to add an amplifier later on, most amplifiers now have standard ISO connectors on them, and will make the connection for of them an awful lot easier. And it's not 8:59. I've just seen the clocks out on that one. So yeah, for me, stereo. Okay, change the head unit. That's one of the easiest and best upgrades which you can do for your MX5 because it improves the overall driving experience. The next thing is also stereo related, is that change your door speakers. Now I bought JVC 6x8s from eBay. They were £22 on eBay. Sorry, on Amazon, and they were like new, and in there, they're just up here in the door, very literally just plug and play. To take the door off, you pop that little plastic clip, 2 plastic clips on the end, 1 screw inside of there and 2 in the handle. The door card pops off in your hand, and then it's literally just 4 screws and you can change your speakers over. But hey, why would you stop there? Go onto eBay and get yourself some sound deadening mat. Inside of my door is, I kid you not, it was about 35 quid for this 5 meter strip by 1 meter deep. And if you listen to this, can you hear that? 2 different sounds. That entire door's got strips of sound deadening in it as well. Made an absolutely massive difference to sound quality and the drivability and the enjoyment factor for me and my MX5. So yeah, number 1 upgrades isn't anything blingy, it's actually the stereo. Do the stereo, do your speakers, and if you've got the ability to do it yourself or the desire, put some sound deadening inside your doors. It makes a massive difference. Right, what else have we got on the upgrade list? Because there are many things which you can add to your upgrade list. And I'm going to have to go in a moment because it's trying to rain here. Howdy, so this has actually been recorded 2 days later because for the last 2 days it is absolutely hammered down with the rain. Right, on to the topic of upgrades. One of the best upgrades and one of the easiest upgrades for you to do is LED lights. So let me go and turn my headlights on and you'll see what I mean. The brand which I go for is Night Eye. And that's not really showing up on this camera at all very well. You'd have to take my word for it. That light in those lenses is super bright white, and at night it's really nice to drive. Now I use Night Eye. Now there's 2 different types. You can either buy the fakeish ones on eBay for £18, or you can buy the proper ones on Amazon for 28. I've had these light bulbs in my BMW for over 2 years. They're absolutely brilliant. I'll put a link to those in the video description below for you, and you'll also notice that I've been and put them in my lower fog lights too. Now a little tip for you when it comes to MX5s and just day-to-day driving, shock horror, drive with your main beam on. So just your if you're driving at night, just your main beam, not your full beam, just your main beam. You will be absolutely surprised the number of people which drive and pull out in front of you. Having your headlights on all the time just helps you be seen, and you notice my fog lights are on as well. They're on for a very good reason. So yeah, very simple upgrade. Now a little note around your full beam. I would personally suggest not changing your full beam bulbs. Now you will need to check your car, but the Mark IIs are H4 bulbs, so you've got a single bulb in there which does your normal main beam and also your full beam. It's in one bulb and it's got 3 connectors on it, whereas in the Mark 2.5s I believe it's a HP4, so it's only 2 connectors, and when it comes to the full beam, just use halogen light bulbs. Now the reason for that is very simple, is that the human eye identifies better. I'm explaining this right. The human eye works better with a yellowy light rather than white light. So while white light for daytime use and night use is it looks really nice, full beams, you've got your full beams on for a very good reason, because you need to see distances. As such, a yellowy light is much better. Oh, and I know somebody will ask me about the KV rating, 6,500, and like I said, I'll put a link to those down on eBay. So LED lights, very simple upgrade to do. Yeah, anyway, I tell you what, while we're on the topic of LED lights, I'll go and pop the bonnet as well. I've got to admit, I wouldn't have bought these myself until I've tried it. Wait for this, it's such a nice little mod. Now, I'm giggling, I know. Right, you ready for this? Up we go. Yes, a car turned up here which I broke into parts. Again, the good ones I keep and the rubbish ones could turn up into parts, and they had these little braces on the side. They are IL Motorsport apparently written on the side of there, yeah, they work really, really well. I have genuinely been impressed with those. Right, let's get myself back onto the list. So a couple of very, very simple upgrades. We've spoken about stereos, we've spoken about speakers, we've talked about LED lights, literally just plug and play to do. Let's quickly get back to my list. LED lights, oh, K&N filter. Now, I know some of the people out there are going to freak out that I've been and stuck a K&N filter. Now, that literally cost me £22 from Amazon, like new. I'll put a link to it in the video description, and all I've done is just take off the top box and plug it into the MAF sensor, and I've left the temperature sensor floating around in the bottom somewhere. Yes, when I first did it, I got an absolute beating from the MX5 enthusiast, saying basically you're sucking hot air off your manifold. So what I then did was to take my Dremel and just cut out the top of the box, and you can buy these boxes off eBay for absolutely no money at all, and then just Dremeled it out, and it just sits in there very, very happily. And the nice thing about doing a K&N mod or an air filter mod like this is that when you accelerate, you get a really nice sucking in noise, and I genuinely mean that, a really nice noise from it. However, when you take your foot off the accelerator, all noise goes. So that's really nice for those of you which are using the MX5 as a daily runner, is that you get a nice when you accelerate, but when you're doing 70 miles an hour down the motorway, you haven't got the continuous hum of a exhaust. And believe it or not, it's trying to rain again, so let's pick up the speed, Matty. Right. Modifications, we spoke about K&N Air-Filter. Stainless exhaust. Now I'll put a photo up on the screen. Again, a car turned up here with a stainless steel exhaust. I was never planning to buy one myself. However, actually in hindsight, I really do like it. And it just adds to the whole MX5 driving experience, if that makes any sense. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to get one, yeah, it is worth the money. I think mine's the standard MX5 parts one. It looks nice and it sounds really nice as well. Now let's get ourselves onto the topic of turbos. Now you'll notice that I have no Snell on mine, and I will also personally suggest not turboing an MX5. Now I'm taking this from the point of view of that I've read enough and seen enough to know that if I was to spend £3,500 on turbo in an MX5, I might as well go and buy a Z3 or Z4, which is already pre-turboed, for example. Okay, there are other vehicles out there which you can buy for less money if you want that kind of small sport cars experience, and also they were designed to do that out of the box. The MX5 was not with the 2 and the 2.5, so keep that in the back of your mind. That said, there's a fantastic company called Motortech down in Westbury, and for £3,500 they've literally got a drive-in service which you can drop your car off on Monday, and then say a week later you can walk out with the turbo all done and dusted. So yeah, that's as much as I know about Motortech, other than one of my buddies who's really into his Mark 1s cannot rave about that company as much as he does. He absolutely loves them, he thinks they're fantastic. Moving on, chrome trim. Now there are lots and lots of, well, there's several different types of upgrades when it comes to the center console for your MX5, and you'll notice here for the air vents, you literally just stick an ID card down either side of the vent and the vent pops out of you. So if you've got black ones, you can put chrome ones in. I also know, I've also had people buy just the black ones off me, and that's one of two reasons. Either they've gone and painted those themselves, so I'll zoom in there a second, they've either painted the outside rim themselves, or they've gone back to black as well. That's a car with an entirely black interior looks actually quite nice. I'll tell you what, let's move around. Again, it's all down to personal taste, isn't it? And you'll see in there it is all black. It looks quite nice, although a splash of chrome could also cheer it up as well. Oh, one other little mod for you. Those of you which have got a Mk2 .5 and are fed up about that centre cup holder, and you know, those of you out there know what I'm talking about. If you can get your hands on a Mark 1 centre console, so I wonder where that centre console's going very shortly, it'll end up going in mine, is that you've got a much bigger armrest, and they're really nice to put your arms on, and you're not forever going in and hitting that flap there, up and down. It's my bane of the MX5. It drives me bonkers. So a little bit of chrome trim. You can also get dial upgrades as well. You'll notice in there around the speedo, you can get upgrades in there. Also, a little simple mod is that you can change the LED, the bulbs behind your speedo and your dials to a different colour. You can buy them for literally just a couple of quid off eBay, and they do make a real difference. Now, I'm zooming out there because I've actually got all the bulbs in my glove box to be done, and I haven't got round to doing it. It's actually quite straightforward. You just take your cowling off on the back, and that binnacle, that plastic piece on the top, literally just pulls forwards, and then it's 4 screws to get the dials out, and then 3 plugs on the back. Very straightforward to do, but there's me saying very straightforward. I've had those bulbs for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 months, and I haven't been and done it on mine yet. So anyway, getting to the topic of chrome trim, yeah, chrome centre console, which you've got down there. That one is quite unique. I've not seen, you'll see that kind of style in there. That car turned up with that in. Kind of pinched it from my own. It's kind of a common theme going on here. I tried not to do it, but they were really nice. Right, moving on. Batteries. When it comes to the MX5, is that it's quite common to find, especially even as they get older and older, is that you'll need a replacement battery. Now, if you go for the original Panasonic, those batteries need to like a continuous trickle charge to them. As such, I would personally suggest going nipping down to Whole Foods. They are £68. I changed mine in my car very, very recently. I'll say recently, within the last 2 months, and I've been really impressed with the battery which I've got in the boot. I tell you what, I'm really that impressed. What I'm going to do, I'll just go around and we'll open up the boot and we'll find out which one we've got in there, because there was a choice of 2. There was a cheaper one, and I went for the more expensive one. So let's pop that round, take a quick look, moving this out. There, it's that one there. It's HCB, so Hotel Charlie Bravo 063 is the battery which I've got. Also, a massive tip for you. Okay, I showed a picture earlier on of these things shorting out on the charger here. Sorry, on the positive terminal. Make sure your battery is clamped down really well, and you have something down to the rear of the vehicle to physically stop this battery from moving that way. Because over time, this will bend and it will give. And I've seen fires, too many fires in the boots. So put something foam down the back just to stop it. If it was to ever go, you have something there to physically stop it from moving. Right, moving on. Next in my list, oh, I'll tell you what, I've got the list here, but I'm going to go into chrome style bars actually. Hoops. There's many different types of hoops which you've got available. Also Woodstock. I don't know if we're going to be able to see in there. Oh, no, you're not going to be able to see it. Maybe we could have a little peek in the back. Yeah, no, you're not going to see it. Then instead of hoops in that one, you've just got a pull-up bar in the back of there, which keeps the wind out. It does really help. You'll notice what I've got on this one is some chrome hoops. Now, these are not the normal ones because they actually tie in to the seatbelt mount. So they're not really roll bars because they're not air fixed in the middle and they're not actually really going down to the subframe at all, but they're a nice little happy medium. One negative I would say about this style of hoop is that when you put your arm back over here to lift up the roof, it makes it much more awkward, whereas before you could put that down, and I know it's an inch difference, but that inch really does make a difference to you being able to pull it up and going over. So also on the topic, style bars. There's about 4 or 5 different types which you can get out there. If you look on eBay, you can find them for about £25 to £35. You would probably want to pay, well, you'd probably end up paying quite a bit more for a chrome set like that one. Again, a car turned up with those in, so I kind of kept it for myself. There are a couple of different types of rear windbreaks as well. You'll notice mine's got a centre section which folds down, which makes it easier to go back to get the roof, although that bar is in the way, which we just discovered. There's also a type which I've got on the back of mine, which is a speaker one. Ta-da! So you have speakers put in the back here on the same bar, and it does actually make a really nice difference. The wiring for this comes up in the middle and goes off to the right hand side. I've never tried retrofitting a car which has not had the same bar in before. To be honest, it's not going to be that hard, and if you did have to retrofit the wiring in to do it, I would do exactly what I've done with mine, which is to run the cabling through the centre console and up there into the back of the carpet. Very, very simple to do, and really does make a nice, pleasant difference to the day-to-day driving experience. Now, going off the script here, I had something else on it which we'll talk about in a moment. You'll notice that I've got leather seats. I mentioned these earlier. There's some irony for you, which is that foam seats are more comfortable, but if you wanted an upgrade, then heck, upgrade to some leather heated seats. Now, some cars have the plugs there, and you might not have the things. You can buy these parts separately off eBay or from other sources. But a very simple bolt-in upgrade is that you could get hold of some leather seats. And again, these came out of an Arctic. They're blue, or I think they also came out of the Euphonic as well. A nice little touch is that you can get door cards which match as well. Some vehicles too, like the Conran as well, had a matching steering wheels, and I've got ones here. I've got a Phoenix here which is brown leather interior. Now that may sound a little bit granddaddy, but you'll have to take my word for it. It looks really nice. In fact, I'll cut into a photograph where I was restoring the leather on a Phoenix which I've had here, which is now being found a new home, and you'll see the night and day difference, but just been a little bit of leather restorer on it, and they came up amazingly well. So yeah, you can get heated leather seats. Expect to pay a minimum, and I genuinely mean this, a minimum of 250 quid for a good set. And the reason, and the bit which makes a good set and a bad set, is either the heater pads have gone, and if the heater pad goes, it's always the back one, and you can short it out on the back and emit it from the circuit. And it's the bolsters which wear as well. So mine's got very, very light wear in the scheme of things, but I have had leather seats here before where the foam has been worn through all the way through the side, and they've literally just sold for say 75 quid to 100 quid, depending on the severity of the weather layer, because nobody really wants them. Personally, it wouldn't bother me that much if the driver's bolsters, and it's only a visual thing really. So yeah, if you don't mind compromising on quality a little bit for the leather seats, you can definitely get cheaper sets out there as well. And I need to go back here. So we were talking about style bars and speaker bars. Oh, one very, very simple upgrade, and I was really surprised they didn't do this, is, and I paid really good money for that. I paid over 30 quid for that. You can see that grille along there. That's 30 quid. It's 2 bolts which holds that in, and you'll see that Woodstock over there has exactly the same thing as well. And when you take a look at a radiator, so we take a look underneath there, I don't know how well that's going to come out. You'll have to take my word for it. I've got radiators here, and the whole lower section of the radiator is absolutely smashed to pieces with stones getting flicked up off the road and going in there. And that little grill will keep some of the stones out. So yeah, very, very simple upgrade. Is literally 2 10mm bolts which you slacken off, squeeze it in, do the bolts up, jobs are good, and anybody can do that upgrade. I personally paid 30 quid for mine from MX5 parts on eBay, but you can also pick them up second hand as well, and it doesn't have to be the best condition ever, because frankly it's going to get pummeled with stones and stuff off the road anyway. Moving on, front grille, dash camera. Ooh, love it or hate it, dash cameras are an absolute necessity on today's roads. And you'll notice that, say we're sat here in the driving position of the car, is that you cannot actually see the dash camera. And what I've been and done with mine is mount it up behind the actual wing mirror itself. The wiring goes over the top, down the side, down the back of the glove box, and then I pick up off the 12 volts which are on the cigarette lighter. Now I've got, mine's not cheap, mine's the Next Base 5112WG, I think. I'll put a link to it in the video description. Fantastic video quality which you get on there day and night. And the reason why I have a dash camera is that when I bought my BMW X5, within 2 days a van pulled out in front of me and almost wrote it off. And yeah, get yourself a dash cam. Don't need to get an expensive one or a really good one like what I've got, although I'd personally suggest it. Any form of camera up on your dashboard, hide it behind the wing mirror, just because it makes it easier when someone else does something stupid. And that's the kind of world which we live in. And if it's on video, There's no real argument, is there?
Where their longer side is approximately 1.618 times longer than their shorter side. The golden ratio, first proposed by Pythagoras in the 5th century BC, is supposed to hold universal aesthetic appeal.
Side indicators. Ooh, I love this mod. You're going to love this mod as well. So simple to do. Anybody can do this. You need very, very light skills to do this. Right, so you all know about the side indicator just there. You also know about your indicator in the front. However, on UK... Oh, mine's not working. Let's go around this side. Oh, there we go. I'll look into that later. On UK spec MX5s, the side reflectors are just reflectors, they're not indicators. So what I've now got all the way around my car is that I did wire these in. Very, very simple to do. Took about 2 hours all in, and that includes fashioning the holes out in the back of the existing ones and then wiring it up as well. That really depends on how competent you are. Mine took me about 2 hours to do, and I was pretty quick at getting it in. I didn't hold back. One major tip is, especially with this side, you do need to drill through the wall, so through the actual body itself. So when you do that, make sure you rust protect and put a rubber grommet in there, so that you don't invoke rust in your MX5, because we all know how bad rust can get with an MX5, and we don't want that to happen. So yeah, very, very simple mod, and does mean you are seen more. Again, one of the negatives about an MX5 is that they are quite small, and people do kind of miss you on the road, especially with the darker colours. So bright, yeah, I've been out in that one and people have still pulled out in front of me, and it's bright yellow and I've got LED lights in the front. So yeah, pet hate, drives me nuts. So yeah, indicators, anything to be seen, really, really does help. We've spoken about the dashboard lights, we've spoken, oh, last tip, and I will stop here. There are many, many other tips which I'm sure I've been and forgotten, but one very simple upgrade. Those of you which have got a mohair roof, I'll put a picture of this up on the screen for you, and again there's a link to it on Amazon for you. It's a product called Fabsil Gold. Now this is a completely frivolous thing to do, but once you see it you'll go, wow, absolutely amazing. Matt, totally agree with you, which is that with the mohair roofs, if you treat it with Fabsil Gold, and you literally under the top of the can, pour it into a plastic tub and then just paint it on with a 2-inch or 3-inch paintbrush. Make sure you cover the whole car. Give it about 20 minutes on a warm day to evaporate off. Then give it a second coat, and if you're a little bit pedantic, give it a third coat. And then what happens is this is like water on a duck's back. It all bubbles up. It looks absolutely amazing. I did mine a couple of months ago. It's still on there now. To be honest, I really need to do it again because it just looks so beautiful in the mornings. So it is time for me to wrap up. I genuinely hope that this video has been and helps you when it comes to the MX5s. They are absolutely amazing cars. I will put it down as a life mistake of not buying an MX5 before. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate about the MX5s as well, and it's so sad to see such terrible maintenance being done on vehicles, and they just end up dying. Those two are just going off to the... Well, parts of them will go on and save other MX5s. We'll leave that on a positive note when it comes to those. These two are, that's my daily, and that one will go off and find a new home. So I tell you what, let's leave this now with a couple of tips for you when you're buying an MX5. Number one, as we spoke back right at the very beginning, I spoke about this for a good 12-15 minutes or so, check for rot. Check everywhere for rot. If it's rotten, walk away. That's my simple tip for you. And again, you will find some amount of rot in there, but if it's chassis rails, walk away. It's so expensive to get those fixed. Rear arches, 200 quid a side. Rear sills, 500 quid for the pair, minimum. Okay, so you have to be extremely careful with rust. Oh, I did mention about Woodstock actually, and again, this was going to be my daily, is that the rear arches, looking backwards, they actually look alright from here, but there is a little bit of bubbling, a little bit of warping underneath there. Like I said, this was going to be my daily car. I wasn't that bothered about it because it's not really structural, and I knew that I'd get another good 3 years or so out of it before having it, and it's only on the one side as well, so eyes wide open is what I'm trying to say when you're going to thinking about rust. Is it a little bit of rust which you can live with on a day-to-day, especially non-structural like the rear arches? There's nobody's going to gash their hands off, there's no gaping holes or anything like that. I could have lived with it, okay? Next one, check the VIN numbers. There are VIN numbers everywhere on an MX5. There's 2 on the back wall. If you lift up the bonnet, there's one stamped into the body. There's one on the back on a metal plate. There's probably one underneath your bonnet, inside the door, inside the boot lid. I don't think I'll ever come across a wrong MX5, but do just check your VIN numbers and make sure they match the V5 document which you've got in your hand, just as a common sense thing to do. Also, do not forget to type the registration in and do a HPI check. There is nothing wrong with those 2 types of written off categories which we've mentioned about. However, we need to know and find out what the cause was. Remember, structural damage genuinely is very, very severe, and I would personally suggest keeping away from a car which has been written off with structural damage. However, category N, find out what it was. It could have just been something as simple as door locks being done, and the car being broken into. That has written off MX5s before, and I'm sure there's many out there which are driving around perfectly happily just because some tool stuck a tool in the door. So, yeah, curious one on that one. Next one is interview your seller. Find out why they are selling the MX5. Are they trying to hide anything? Put your spidey senses into full awareness mode and look for anything dodgy. Remember, there is a buyer's market when it comes to the MX5s, just like the rust. If you're not happy with the questions and the answers which you're getting from your seller, just thank them for their time very politely and get up and walk away. And you would not believe the amount of conversations which I've had with people over the phone, and my spidey senses have gone off in that conversation and I've just walked away from that car. Actually, there's some irony. That green shed just there, I was right. I knew I was right. There was something was not worded correctly about the listing for this car, and I personally declined actually buying it. And it was my pickup guys which said, "Matt, this one's really, really cheap. I think you should go and get it." And I spoke to Macaulay and I said, there's something not right with it. There's something not right. Anyway, the irony is they went up and bought it for me. They brought it down, and Macaulay said the guy just shuttled off really, really quickly afterwards. The car's got no clutch, and it was a what was it? I can't remember now. It was either category N or something. And anyway, absolute rot box. And the bloke just wanted his money, and he was gone. Really, really sharpish. So use your spidey senses. You can normally tell very, very quickly. And anyway, yeah, just eyes wide open. Next one is drive the car in all gears, okay? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and potentially sixth if it's got a 6-speed gearbox. And again, check your seller if it really does have a 6-speed, because that could be reverse. But do also check your car in reverse. Make sure you go out into full steering lock right, full steering lock left. Listen for noises. If you a little tip for you, if you do hear noisy gear changes, okay, so in other words, you can hear the mechanism moving around a lot, don't worry, it's just a bit of a bartering point with the seller, because it's a 40 quid set of gaiters which are underneath the gear stick. Really, really simple to do. It's like 5 screws to get in there, and then 7 bolts. Yeah, 4 bolts on the outside, 3 bolts on the inside, and about half an hour to do it once you're in there. Very, very straightforward job to do. Yeah, could be a bartering point to knock a bit of money off it, and you go, ooh, those gear changes don't sound very good. I'll have to get my mechanic to look at those. You know where we're going with that one. Any excuse to knock 50 quid or 100 quid off a car needs to be done. Right, last one, and it's the last point as well, is if the car vibrates, okay, and look for this either on pull away, okay, so make sure you do lots of stop starts, okay, make sure you're not hearing the brakes binding at the back, because remember that's not prohibitively expensive, but it is an unnecessary expense, or something which you could barter with for those rear discs binding where the piston's been and got stuck from poor maintenance of the brake fluid. But do pull away from the car, pull away with the car several times. You're looking for shaking or towards noises coming from both the clutch area and the rear differential, and also get the car up to about 3,500 revs, and make sure you go all the way through the rev range. Where you get the maximum like kind of power is that when you use the entire rev range up to about 6,500 revs. So make sure you really do rag its nuts, because that's what you're going to be doing as the new owner. So yeah, don't be afraid, do it. And you're looking out for untold vibrations. Remember that conversation earlier about the prop shaft going on one which I had here? Very, very simple fix. £15 fix, and it was already up on the ramp. It took 5 minutes to get it on the ramp, 5 minutes to fix it because I had the part here. But you can buy the drive shafts off eBay. They're 15, 20 quid, and that includes delivered. So that's my final tips for you when you're going to buy an MX5. Check out the rust, interview the seller, and drive the car how you would actually expect to drive it on a day-to-day basis, and do not be scared of ragging its nuts off, because that's probably what you're going to do later on, or you might need to do it in certain circumstances. So there we go. For myself, Matt, I want to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time to watch this video. If you've got all the way through this one, and you must be really keen on getting an MX5, get out there, get looking, but remember, #1 priority when it comes to an MX5 is rot. Remember that sentence which I said earlier. If you have a choice between two cars and one is rotten and one is not, but this one comes with loads of service history and the person's really nice, okay, but this one is not rotten and you have no service history, go for the one which is not rotten. It will save you the most amount of money long term. Remember, engines in MX5s are rock solid. It's rare to find an issue with an engine, and when it is, it's typically really, really simple. Okay, remember we spoke about those lambda sensors and that crank angle sensor, so keep that in the back of your mind. I genuinely hope this video has been and helped you. I absolutely adore my MX5. I hope, and I genuinely mean this, I hope this video has been a help to you, and I really do wish your best when you're out there looking for an MX5, and just get out there that Sunday afternoon, roof down, oh heck, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all over again. Get that roof down, get some wind in your hair. Well, if I had hair, I'd have wind in it, and get out there and enjoy it. The MX5 is an absolute corking car. And on that note, from myself, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Oh, by the way, if you enjoyed this and found it helpful, hit the thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Any comments or questions, just ask in the comment section underneath this video. So from myself, Matt, cheerios!